Welcome. This studio session is focusing on the Task Force for Ukraine. It is our pleasure to present to you the activities that the Task Force has been taking along this year in favor of our colleagues and stroke patients in Ukraine. So let's start with our participants today, and we start with Yuriy Flomin, stroke neurologist working in Kiev in the Oberg Hospital and co-chair of the Task Force for Ukraine. Yuriy, thank you very much for participating and for being with us today. I'd like to have your takes on the work that the Task Force has been doing and what are the main activities and the main results that, according to you, the Task Force has achieved.
The task force was very timely action taken by the ESO at the beginning of the aggression against our country back in spring 2022. And it's helped us to stay resilient and to support our stroke community, both health professionals and patients. And there we had a lot of meetings, you all remember, we had a lot of lectures, and we are particularly very grateful to the ESO for organizing a series of educational events. It's actually, we have currently we have the third series of lectures provided by the best world-renowned experts in the field. And thanks to Angels, they are translated into Ukrainian language to reach out to most people in our country. And so we have a chance, thanks to Task Force for Ukraine and ESO, we have a chance to learn from the best experts in the field. And also, I cannot mention, cannot but help but mentioning the we have T-shirts, bags, mouse pads, and and our beautiful logo of Task Force for Ukraine, which is also present at the web page of ESO. Everyone can check the web page and find the information about our activities. But maybe some other colleagues, maybe Dmytro would like to add something.
Yes, and thank you very much, Yuriy, and I leave the floor to my co-moderator, Professor Michael Mazya from Stockholm. Please.
Thank you very much, Francesca. Pleasure to be here. So we have a few questions for our Ukrainian colleagues. We were standing here a year ago. You had already shown a fantastic resilience and ability to keep caring for your stroke patients despite of incredible challenges and difficulties imposed by the invasion. So how has this process matured and developed over the last year?
Okay, thank you, Michael, for this question. So I think it's very important to understand that Ukrainians are getting used for these conditions, that I think it's not really good, but we are getting used and we know how to provide stroke care, and we continue to do this. So despite the war, we still do our best. And even in these conditions, we managed to improve our numeric numbers. So we right now have 6.4% TPA rate, but it was 5% before the war. We have 0.8% of mechanical thrombectomies that is also increasing. So right now we are matured, as you mentioned. And right now Ministry of Health and National Health Service continue to provide the support for the stroke care, and stroke is still the priority. Despite the war, despite the combat trauma, despite the military traumas, still stroke is a priority. So as was mentioned a couple of days ago, 9 angio suits for neurointerventions were bought by the Ukrainian government, and will be distributed in the hospital. So I think even in these conditions, we can provide stroke care, and we know how to do this. And the best that stroke physicians can do is to continue to work for our patients. So that's what is important.
Yeah, actually, I would like to add to that we don't really know well the situation on occupied territories, unfortunately, and near the front line there are a lot of challenges, but in the central part, the western part of the country. They also had to face new reality with a lot of internally displaced persons, and a lot of people from our country fled to neighboring European countries. So the impact of war was huge, and I well remember that early in spring last year, it was Hanne who mentioned that we should get prepared for that. That people, they are refugees, they don't bring their medical records, they don't bring their medications, and it could lead to a surge in stroke incidents. And so I immediately started warning my primary care colleagues that they should encourage their patients to retrieve their medical records and show up to local family physicians and declare their problems, hypertension, hyperlipidemia, diabetes, and so on, so that they are better taken care of. So we have learned a lot, but still struggling with the consequences of the war.
Okay, so I want also to continue what Yuriy mentioned regarding the incidence of stroke. So it's a really important thing that before the war we had about 42 million inhabitants. There were about 5 to 7 million migrated from the Ukraine, but the number of strokes remains the same in Ukraine. So before the war, in 2021, we had 130,000 strokes. Last year, we have 135,000 strokes. So we have much more strokes per 100,000 inhabitants. So that's a very important point that Yuriy already mentioned, that primary prevention is very important, and we are struggling with this. Another thing that we also need to mention is the migration of healthcare professionals out of the country. We have nurses, we have physicians who are out of the country. That's a very big problem. So that's another point we need to mention, and we need to look for how to overcome this.
But I wanted to mention that our colleagues in the cities near the front line, like Kherson, Kharkiv, Zaporizhia, and others, Dmytro, so they kept providing the best care they could. And actually most patients, not all patients, but most patients still had a chance to benefit from emergency medical services, delivering to the right hospital, and the care offered this hospital, including acute, hyperacute interventions, and for workup, and at least referral for further rehabilitation if needed.
Thank you very much, Yuriy and Dmytro. And I think actually from a European perspective, we had many patients coming from Ukraine that we had in terms of European humanitarian aid, both in Italy, Denmark, and Sweden. Isn't it, Michael? What is your take on that?
Indeed. I think there are plenty of countries that have pulled through and tried to support Ukraine where they could, and including obviously advanced surgery or post severe trauma rehabilitation of the more intensive, resource intensive kinds, naturally. So I was wondering, Yuriy, could you tell us a couple of examples of your advocacy work that you have continued doing in terms of stroke in order to support stroke care in Ukraine?
I hope that all know the Stroke Action Plan's activities led by Hanne and Francesca, and we continued our activities within the implementation strategy of this and rollout of this Stroke Action Plan. We also had some educational events There are professional societies dedicating their efforts to improve stroke care and to reduce the burden of stroke in Ukraine. So despite the war, we had several national conferences online last year and continue to organize meetings this year. And we also keep our ties with the stroke support organization which we have in Ukraine. It's called Ukrainians Against Stroke. So we keep our ties, and Dmytro and I and some other colleagues. So we continue our efforts aimed at collaboration with national government, the Ministry of Health, National Health Service of Ukraine, WHO office in Ukraine, World Bank office in Ukraine, and some other international partners. So we don't feel that the significance of stroke problem has somehow decreased at the time of war. As Dmytro mentioned, it could even have increased.
Dmytro, tell us more about development partners and collaboration. I know that I heard and I'm aware that recently the task force, thanks to your work, your brother work and Yuriy's work, has been awarded by a grant by the University of Oslo, and I think it's very important to acknowledge that. Would you tell us more about it, Dmytro?
Yeah, I think it was a huge work of the Task Force for Ukraine. And of course University of Oslo. So this is really important educational support, not only educational but just support for Ukraine, because with this grant we can do different activities. So we can we will do the survey of what was done in Ukraine, what was in Ukraine before the war, what happened during the war at the first months, and what the situation is right now. So we will do a huge work, deep work with the data that we have. The second part of this grant will go for the department-to-department visit to the best stroke care for the physicians in Ukraine, to visit the best stroke centers within the Ukraine. So I think it's very important that not only European colleagues can teach and provide some support to our physicians, but also the best stroke centers can share their knowledge, how the things are going on in Ukraine and what we can do for our stroke societies. So what we can do for our stroke physicians, how to develop knowledge and better stroke care. So I think it's one of the best things that can be done. And also what Yuriy already started about educational activities that are already done in Ukraine. So we did a couple of stroke schools. One of them was offline, fortunately. So it was 5 days intensive training for 30 young stroke physicians. So it was really huge achievement.
Thank you, Dmytro. And we should carry on now with Professor Hanne Christensen from Denmark and her intense work also in terms of humanitarian aid for our Ukrainian colleagues. What have you been doing and what is your experience in that, Hanne?
Well, my experience was that we as healthcare professionals can actually take initiatives personally or with our local group to give donations if we work with our Ukrainian colleagues. Yuriy contacted me and told that in the stroke unit you needed equipment especially for mobilization and for rehabilitation. And then I contacted my colleagues in the Copenhagen area to ask, do we have equipment that we're no longer using because it's still functioning, but you know, not the one from this, not the models from this year, but last year's models. And everybody were very excited about this. I also contacted the capital region of Copenhagen that were very supportive and also supported us with the logistics. And then we went into collaboration with the stroke support organization Hjernesagen in Denmark, without whom this would simply not have been possible, because they have contact to Red Cross and many other organizations. So at the end of the day, I could, together with my colleagues, we could collect the items, They were transported to a central warehouse in the capital region of Denmark. Jan saying the SSO could manage all the logistics on sending it, things for the customs, etc. And we already had a list from you telling us where could we deliver it and what did you need. And everybody were really, really supportive, and I actually got to learn my own organization much better because I actually found out who are actually taking care of all these things. Where do we find it? And I think this was really a good experience, also with collaboration within. So I think that if we have an idea, we can do it, but we need to have professional support. We shouldn't just take a van, drive to the Ukrainian border and just leave it there. We need to get the right things to the right places, but we can do it.
Thank you very much, Hanne. And we have, I think, just 1 minute left, maybe 90 seconds. And so I'd like to ask my co-chair what is our take-home message for today?
Well, our take-home message for today is that as we started to support our Ukrainian colleagues and working together to support the stroke patients in Ukraine already more than a year ago, so this is continuing with several activities ongoing and more planned, and we can only hope for in the next ESO that we can stand here and talk more about activities in peacetime.
Yes.
And in all of the Ukrainian country and territory, where we can continue the support, but already without the war.
Yes, thank you very much, Michael. Thank you very much, Dmytro, Yuriy and Hanne for being with us today. And it's really my pleasure to have shared with you these experiences from the Task Force for Ukraine. And I can only conclude by saying that we keep to be resilient and support the resilience of this fantastic country. And what can I say? Be brave like Ukraine.
Thank you.
With the team of stroke department of Pezzella City Hospital too. Despite the full-scale invasion of Russia into Ukraine at this horrible time, we continue to work for the wellness and health of people. We provide full diagnosis, thrombolytic therapy, treatment and early rehabilitation. In the past year, 1,775 patients with stroke were treated in our hospital and 446 thrombolyses were performed. Our department includes 2 stroke units with 12 beds, and a third stroke was opened for the treatment of intracerebral hemorrhages. Since last year, we have anesthesiologists in our staff. We provide early rehabilitation for our patients by highly qualified physiotherapists, speech therapists, ergotherapists, and psychologists. Despite the increase of number of patients with strokes and war, we ready 24 hours, 7 days a week to provide highly qualified assistance.
Sumy is northern outpost of Ukraine, and our stroke center is an outpost of stroke medicine in our region. We didn't stop providing medical care despite the partial occupation of the region and a siege of the city when Russia had invaded Ukraine again. Ambulances, volunteers, staff of the hospital, everyone worked hard as a perfect team because we help everyone in need. Both civilians and those who defended us, because all of us have the only one goal: well-being of our people in our free Ukraine. Nowadays, we continue to improve the level of medical care about our patients with acute stroke.
Despite the war in Ukraine, Stroke Center of Kyiv Regional Clinical Hospital continues to work and provides round-the-clock healthcare services for the patients with acute stroke using modern methods of treatment, including thrombolytic therapy, endovascular thrombectomy, and surgical treatment.
I am doctor from Ukraine. I work at hospital in the city of Nikopol. where thrombolytic therapy is provided to stroke patients. To achieve this, we have created a multidisciplinary team that continues for too long. Despite constant challenge from enemy artillery, the team continues to work and provided quality medical service to the population.
Greetings, my name is Nina. I'm a neurosurgeon from Zaporizhia. Despite the fact that hostilities continue about 30 kilometers from our city, our stroke team continues to provide assistance to patients. We perform thrombolysis and trauma extractions regardless of anything.
Hello, my name is Alexander and I am a neurologist and I specialize in providing emergency help to patients with acute stroke. Before the war, I used to live and work in Kramatorsk, Donetsk region. After the beginning of the full-scale war, I and my family had to leave our home and seek refuge in Kropivnitsky, Kirovograd region. Right now, I'm a head of a newly created Department of Acute Strokes in the regional hospital, where we have to start to actively provide thrombolytic therapy. We are also working in the introduction of mechanical thrombectomy.
The stroke center in Chernivtsi keeps on working from the beginning of Russian invasion in Ukraine. Fortunately, Chernivtsi is a relatively safe region, so our city became a shelter and home for thousands of internally displaced people. Despite air alerts and the danger of rocket attacks, we continue providing health care to stroke patients 24/7. Diagnostics, treatment, including intravenous thrombolysis and rehabilitation, starting from the patient's admission until his discharge. We are fighting stroke and our enemies, everyone on his front. Slava Ukraini!
Welcome to the city of Kharkov, the emergency hospital, neurology comprehensive care unit. Since the beginning of Russian full-scale invasion of Ukraine, our department has worked 24/7 despite constant challenge by the enemy. Our department deals with treatment, diagnosis of strokes, thrombolytic therapy, as well as rehabilitation of our patients.
Greetings, my name is Alexander Mironov and I'm the head of the Intensive Stroke Unit of Odessa City Clinical Hospital number 10. Our department provides comprehensive round-the-clock medical assistance for patients with stroke. The unit is staffed by a team of healthcare professionals including critical care specialists, neurologists, physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists and nurses. The stroke unit is equipped with the state-of-the-art diagnostic and treatment equipment. Our stroke unit is designed to meet the unique needs of all stroke patients with special aid care plans and treatment protocols tailored to the individual needs of each patient, including thrombolysis and endovascular thrombectomy. Patients are closely monitored by the medical staff with frequent assessment of their physical and cognitive function. Our goal is to help patients to achieve the best possible recovery and to improve the quality of life after stroke. We are very grateful for our support and assistance provided during the stormy times of military aggression against our country.